Listening naturally improves your speech. Hey everyone, Tom Harrison here with Pro90D, another in the listening series. And we'll see, I might do more than one of these because I don't want this to be too long, but I love this topic. First off, I want to say right from the top here that I'm using this word naturally in two very different ways. But the benefits, either way you look at it, are profound for your speech, for your communication. The first way is the way we might naturally think of the way I used the word naturally, right? In other words, I might have said listening normally improves our speech. Listening typically improves our speech. It's expected that listening is going to improve our speech. Listening automatically improves our speech. Things like that, right? We say, oh, it's natural that that's going to happen. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. That, well, of course, it's natural. Yes. And some of those natural, typical, normal, automatic, expected ways that listening improves our speech is one, giving us space, right? Allowing us to pause. So each of us as a speaker in a conversation, in a discussion, in a team meeting, whatever the communication scenario is, it's often extremely helpful to have time to pause. For many of us, it's really important to pause, to give ourselves time right in the beginning of a conversation, discussion, etc., so that we're not just leaping into it, right? So that we don't rush into our speech. That's a big problem that many people who come to Pro9DD for help have, is they tend to rush. Well, you don't have to rush. And in fact, it's so much better if you don't rush in almost all situations, unless it's an emergency, right? And very infrequently in our communications is it an emergency, right? So listening gives us that space. It allows us to pause, but it has far more benefits than simply pausing. Because what do many of us do when we're pausing? Many of us, when we pause in a conversation, in a discussion, in a team meeting, etc., we're pausing to think about what we're going to say. And what impact does that have? It has the impact of not being able to listen very well, right? It's really hard to listen and also think about what we're going to say at the same time. We might get the gist of what's being said by others, but so much more effective in our communication if we hear what they say, not to mention the fact that we might need to know what's being said by others, particularly if it's work related, right? So if we're sitting there thinking about what we're going to say while somebody else is saying something in a team meeting at work, that could really be harmful for our own knowledge, right? We're not leaving that meeting with the information we really need. But worse, we're taking that time to figure out what we want to say, which is probably going to be out of context and not really aligned with the conversation if we haven't been listening. So that also gives us a beautiful opportunity to relax and not worry about what we're going to say, because we're going to say something much more appropriate to the conversation, to the discussion, to the team meeting, if what? We actually listen to what's going on. Also keeps us from feeling like we got to say something, right? If we listen, it gives us that space to realize, you know what? I don't actually have to say something here. Now, if you do, again, if it's an emergency or if it's super important, you have something really, really important to be said, fine. But even still, you don't have to rush, right? You'll get it in. And if need be, if it's super important, you can just say, hey guys, I so appreciate what you're saying here. And you really need to know this. This is very, very important. Great. But again, how often is that the situation? What's more typical for many of us, we're not listening effectively. We intend to, but we're not listening very effectively. We're thinking about what we're going to say. We say it. Maybe it's appropriate, but it's very likely already been said in some way, and it's not perfectly suited to the conversation because we weren't listening well. And it's just not the most effective communication. And sometimes it can go really bad, right? So all of that I'm talking about here, I think it's pretty easy to see. We often miss it when we're in the conversation, when we're in the meeting, because we forget, we're just not paying attention, right? We're not coming to the conversation, the discussion, etc., with the deep intention of listening, right? It's not present for us. So just being present to the importance of listening itself will have all those benefits that I just mentioned and many more. And now there's this whole other arena of this word naturally, which I think the setting that I'm in has probably given it away, right? With this dappled light on my face, with the trees in the background, with the birds singing. I'm talking about benefits from listening naturally, meaning listening when you're out in nature and listening to nature. So one, listening when you're out in nature, it could be you're in a conversation with somebody or you're planning a conversation. Hey, let's take it outside. Let's see if we can find, a park, at least a tree to stand under. Maybe it's by the ocean or the riverside or whatever nature you have, even if it's a single tree, even if it's a garden. Gardens can be wonderful, right? Some way to get out of the normal routine of the office space if you can. It's a great thing to maybe suggest, to recommend at your company if normally you're just kind of stuck in the building all day long. If there's an opportunity to step out into nature, whatever you can find, it's also a fun adventure just to find out what's around you. Many of us, we go to work, we get in the building, we stay in the building all day. We don't even think about what nature might be around there. So that alone is a great exercise. So much more I could say about this. So much of my work as a guide, a life purpose guide, has to do with being out in nature. I talk about walking your why. And when I talk about walking your why, I'm talking about walking largely in natural spaces as much as we can. It's just so nurturing. So if you want to learn more about that and my work and getting out in nature and how that can be so powerful for your life, give me a shout. Be happy to talk to you about my work. But for this particular purpose of speech, of becoming literally a better speaker, a better communicator, by being a better listener, listening naturally, listening in nature can be a tremendous help. So there's that example I just gave, which is to the extent you can, bring your conversations, bring your meetings, your discussions outside into nature. Hey, even if there's no trees around, there's always the sky, right? So that alone can bring a whole new dimension to the conversation, and it can give you the space to listen in a different way. Experiment with that if you would. So there's that. So at the very minimum, if you take the exact same conversation and bring it outside, at least you're getting some of the nurturing benefits of the sun, hopefully it's cleaner air outside. Kind of depends on the city, but often the air inside is worse than the air outside, even in the city. Maybe you can check that out too. Indoor air quality is often very poor in buildings, especially if they're old buildings that don't have good ventilation systems. It can be terrible air quality. So just getting outside can bring you more energy as well. So there's lots and lots of reasons just to go outside with that conversation, with that discussion, if you can, if you're able to. But then there's a whole other dimension where it's about listening to nature. Like, did you hear the birds there? Just there's something so powerful about that, about hearing the sounds of nature. Some are very subtle. Right now there's a slight breeze blowing. I don't know if you can hear it. You can probably see the leaf right here moving. If you do hear it, I hope it's not, irritating. I hope the mic is working with the wind okay. But that's a sound. I can hear it. I don't know if you can. I can hear the very slight breeze. You can hear some of the leaves moving a little bit. But I wouldn't be able to hear that if there was much chatter going around, or if there's cars driving by, or just a lot of other noise, office noise, etc., I've got to be out here listening. And even out here, I've got to be intentionally listening to hear those subtle sounds. Right now, as I quiet down, I can hear like the buzz of an insect or two nearby. I can actually hear some cars way in the distance. Now I can hear, it sounds like a bee. Hopefully not going to come too close. But it's beautiful, right? And I really recommend for all of you who can do it, and hey, I get it. For some of us, it's hard to get to this kind of nature that's this quiet. But if you can, do it as often as you can. I promise you, just the art of listening, the practice of listening in an environment like this, it will bring you energy, it will bring you nourishment, it will fill your soul in such a way that it's going to make you feel better about being yourself. It really will. And it's just a wonderful place to practice listening, right? Giving yourself the time and the space to, number one, get out in nature, because it takes effort for most of us, right? For most of us, we don't walk out of our door and bam, we're in a place like this. I'm fortunate enough to live very close to nature. This is not the same place that's right outside my door, but it's not too far away. So I'm very fortunate. And I have trails right outside my door that I love. And I get out there as often as possible. And I know that's not the same for many people, but still try to make it something you do as often as you can. I promise you that will be so helpful. And just getting out there and experiencing for yourself what it's like to listen in nature. Now, one of the things you're going to notice if you don't do this much, if you haven't made a practice of it already, getting out and listening in nature, is you might find that now, even if you're not hearing other chatter, right? And right now I'm suggesting getting out there by yourself, or if you go with others, that you all agree to have a period of silence, right? So that you're not just listening to others talking, you're actually hearing the sounds of nature, right? You're hearing the beautiful silence of nature. Right? When I think of silence, it doesn't mean no noise whatsoever. As long as the sounds I'm hearing are pleasant sounds, uplifting sounds, right? And the sounds of nature tend to be like that. Now, there have been times when I might be in the city somewhere and there's a huge flock of crows and they're just going crazy, and that can get annoying after a while. But there's still a quality to it. It's just that natural quality. There's just something really special. And if you find a place like this, you can find amazing, amazing quiet. And that is so deeply nourishing. But it allows us to also hear the voices inside our head that seem to always be there. And yet, they will diminish so much easier, so much more quickly in a space like this. Because often what's happening is those voices are in our head, and we may not even realize the voices are there, but they are running us, right? These negative voices, or these voices that, for example, are telling us we need to rush. We may not actually hear a voice that's saying you need to rush, you need to hurry up. But we're doing it. We're acting from that voice of hurry up, you got to get going. You need to get your piece in. You need to be able to talk too. You need to have your opportunity to say something in this conversation, in this meeting, right? Hurry, jump in now. Figure out what you need to say, all that kind of stuff. You may not hear those words, but that's what's happening. There's an inner script that's guiding you. And often it's guiding us exactly where we don't need to be going. This is from our patterns of the past, right? And one of the best ways to dissolve those patterns of the past, one of the easiest ways, is to invest more time in nature and allow yourself to listen naturally, and bask in all the other benefits of being in a natural space like this. So that ultimately, when we say listening naturally improves your speech, being out in nature like this will be one of those normal, typical, expected things you do. Beautiful quiet now. Enjoy listening naturally and experience how it takes your communications to the next level, perhaps a level you never could have imagined. Hope to see you along the trail. I hope to see you in Pro 90D, where you can take all of the techniques I'm speaking to and bring them into your life, into your speaking situations systematically. So you can say what you want to say, when you want to say it, the way you want to say it, calmly, clearly, confidently, naturally. See you along the trail. May they be happy trails. Take care. And remember, your voice matters.